In the heart of deep space, silence is heavier than any sound. No echo, no wave, no presence, just an old void, until the bell rang again. It was a simple sound, 3 long pulses, 2 short pulses, and a low echo at the end. A pattern that humans knew well. It was the distress code of the first interstellar colonies, used centuries ago when Earth still looked to the stars with hope, not fear. The transmission was detected by chance by the Aurora 7 scan spacecraft, operating at the edge of the Lyra galaxy. The sensors picked up the sequence in the middle of a radiation storm, something that should have made any communication impossible. And yet, the signal was clear, precise, as if waiting to be heard. On the bridge of Aurora 7, the alarm sounded with a metallic tone. "Captain, clear reception. It is a human code." "SOS," said the operator, his eyes wide. Captain Elias Wren, a veteran of long missions, approached the screen. The traces of weariness on his face disappeared when he saw the wrists being displayed, perfectly aligned. Origin, Venar system, a sector abandoned for more than 200 years. The Venar sector had been empty since the disappearance of the Horizon Dawn colonizer fleet. No sign since then. No ship dared to approach. It was considered a graveyard of stars, where even drones got lost. But there he was, the last echo of a missing colony. The news spread quickly through internal channels. The Exploration Council authorized an immediate mission. A single ship was deployed, the Odyssey, a reconnaissance frigate equipped for long voyages, manned by veterans and specialists. Elias Wren was appointed commander. He accepted without hesitation. "If anyone is still there, we're going to bring them back." As the Odyssey prepared for the jump, the signal repeated at perfect intervals, like a lone lighthouse in the middle of the Black Sea. However, the analysts noticed something strange. The transmission showed no temporal degradation. It was as if it had been issued now, not centuries ago. The jump was authorized. The coordinates are fixed. Elijah observed the transmission for the last time before the fold. 3 long pulses, 2 short ones, a deep echo. Something inside him tightened. It was too familiar, and too easy. The Odyssey disappeared into the warp drive, leaving behind the comfort of known space. In the darkness beyond the maps, the echo repeated itself tirelessly, like a hook cast silently, waiting for someone to bite. The frigate Odyssey emerged from the warp drive like a specter cutting through the blackness of space. Its bluish lights came on one by one, reflecting off the metal housing scarred by decades of quiet service. It was not a warship, but a deep exploration ship, designed to go beyond the reach of the main fleets, where maps became hypotheses and the unknown ceased to be poetry to become reality. Inside the ship, 200 crew members were preparing for a mission that officially was search and rescue. Unofficially, no one knew what to expect. The Venar sector had swallowed craft before, leaving no debris or signs. The Odyssey would be the first to cross the region since the loss of the Horizon Dawn fleet, and, contrary to ancient legends, it carried no superstition, but equipment, science, and human determination. On the bridge, Commander Elias Wren watched the reports with a forced calm. He knew well the silence that preceded uncertainty. The main screen projected a 3-dimensional map of the sector, an irregular void dotted with dead stars and a single active point, the origin of the signal. "Captain," said the navigation officer, "calculated trajectory. No relevant obstacles, but sensors show strange gravitational noise, fluctuations incompatible with ordinary celestial bodies." Elias leaned into the projection. "Variable gravity in empty space. That's never good." On the lower deck, scientific teams were preparing probes and scanning drones. Among them was Dr. Lyra Sloan, a linguist and expert on ancient transmissions. She looked over the spectrogram of the signal, trying to find flaws, interferences, or any detail that would betray falsification. "If that's a trick," he murmured, "it's the most perfect I've ever seen." Meanwhile, in the barracks, security soldiers were reviewing containment equipment. They weren't going into battle, but no one was unaware of the rumors. Lost civilizations, non-human intelligences, phantom signs. The simple name Venar was part of the classified files, surrounded by inconclusive reports and unexplained disappearances. In the center of the ship, the AI core, Orion, monitored everything in silence. A translucent sphere pulsed lightly, analyzing data beyond human capacity. Commander Wren echoed the neutral voice of the AI. The gravitational patterns in the target sector suggest the presence of an unrecorded massive structure. The origin coincides with the signal. A structure? Elijah raised his eyebrow. Yes. Something stationary. It's old. The crew met in the main auditorium. Elijah climbed to the platform, his gaze steadfast. More than 2 centuries ago, a fleet disappeared here. Today, we follow its last echo. Maybe we'll find survivors. Maybe we'll find answers. Or maybe, let's find something that has never been human. Whatever is transmitting that signal, it wants to be found. And we will respond. Silence. And then, the preparations began again with almost ritual discipline. The ship adjusted its final course. The jump to Venar was scheduled. Outside, the stars watched impassively. And in the dark beyond them, something was watching back. The final leap took Odyssey to the limits of the Venar system. The warp opened with a blue flash, and the ship emerged in the midst of a silent, dull region. Ahead, an anemic star cast a faint, almost dying light. Around it, unstable orbits, belts of debris, and clouds of cosmic dust swirled slowly, like ghosts trapped in an endless cycle. On the bridge, the sensors began to work in silence. Lines of data emerged, projecting the gravitational topography of the sector. That was all. "Captain," warned the navigator, "there is no stable planetary body on this route, but there is a gravitational anomaly exactly where the signal originates." Elijah frowned. "Anomaly of what kind?" "She's oscillating, as if it were a beating heart. The communications operator has expanded the signal. The 3 long pulses, 2 short pulses, and the low echo filled the room again, reverberating like a reminder of another era. But this time, something changed. The final echo was slightly offset, as if the signal itself was being played by a machine that didn't fully understand what it was saying. In the scientific section, Dr. Lyra Sloan was looking at the spectrum with staring eyes. "That's not degradation," she murmured. "It's imitation. Someone is repeating the human code, as if I had learned to copy it." A heavy silence fell over the team. "So, aren't they survivors?" asked one of the technicians. Lyra did not answer, but her look said it all. The Odyssey slowly approached the point of origin. The readings became more intense and erratic. The gravitational field oscillated with almost artificial precision. Peaks, pauses, and falls at a steady pace, as if someone were modulating space itself to get attention. "Captain," said Orion, the AI, "I detected a stationary structure ahead. Diameter, 11 kilometers. Shape, circular. It's orbiting the void, without any celestial body as a reference." Elijah leaned forward. "Orbiting nothing?" On the main screen, an image began to form. Out of the darkness, a colossal station emerged, slowly, revealing itself piece by piece. It was a perfect circular shape, with a central core and huge metal arms that extended like frozen petals. There was no light outside, no signs of heat, but the signal came from there, from the core. The crew members were silent. None of them had seen anything like it. It was clearly artificial, but there were no human marks, no language, no transponder, no secondary emission. It was as if the structure was dead, except for the signal that echoed like a forgotten beacon. Lyra took a step towards the holographic visor. "This was not built for humans. That was prepared for humans to find it." Elias felt the cold rise down his spine. The human distress code was being transmitted for something that was not human and that seemed to know exactly how to attract them. Outside, the station rotated slowly, like a motionless predator waiting for its prey to approach. Odyssey inched toward the colossal structure. In the darkness of the Wiener system, the station looked like a metallic crown floating above the void, silent, imposing, and absolutely still. No thermal emission, no apparent activity, and yet, the signal beat from the center, steady and perfectly clean, as if it were being generated at that very moment. On the bridge, the lights were reduced to a minimum. All eyes were fixed on the three-dimensional projection that Orion magnified in real time. Distance, 50,000 kilometers, the navigator announced. "Keep approaching slowly," Elijah commanded. No transmissions, no external lights. Long-range cameras began to pick up details: weathered panels, impact-scarred surfaces, and large sectors of the structure covered in a thick layer of space dust. It was evident that the station had been there for a long time. But there was something strange. The edges were perfect, without erosion or deformation, as if they had been built yesterday. "I don't detect human docking ports," the engineering chief reported. "But there are access channels. Organic?" The image fits. The external corridors resembled petrified veins, curved tunnels that did not follow the logic of human constructions. "It looks more cultivated than built," Lyra commented, her gaze fixed. "As if it were a living station, but dead for a long time." Odyssey stabilized its position in the structure's silent orbit. Reconnaissance drones were launched, advancing cautiously through the openings. The images transmitted to the bridge were unsettling. Dark corridors, walls covered in fossilized organic textures, and huge rooms with impossible geometries. No power source detected, and yet the drones recorded internal gravitational pulses, synchronized with the signal. One of the drones arrived at the central core. The camera revealed a vast circular chamber with a monolith suspended in the center, surrounded by cables and structures that looked like metal roots. The signal was from there. "That's the heart of the station," said Lyra in a low voice. Orion confirmed. "Signal source located. Transmission pattern identical to the original human code, but generated by an active gravitational nucleus. That's not a transmitter. It's a breeder." Elijah kept his gaze fixed on the image. "It's a trap," he said at last. The word echoed across the bridge like a shard of ice. Even so, the protocol was clear: direct contact. A team was formed, Elias at the front, accompanied by Lyra, 2 security guards, and an engineer. They donned field suits and boarded the small shuttle. "We'll go through the outer tunnels and go to the core," Elias said. "We want answers, not heroism. Any sign of activity, we are back." As the shuttle approached one of the incoming veins, the station remained motionless, without emitting any reaction. But when the crew crossed the boundary of the structure, the Odyssey's sensors picked up a unique pulse coming from the core. He was not hostile. It wasn't random. It was welcome. Elias, already in the dark interior of the station, felt a subtle pressure in the air, as if he were being watched by something he had just woken up. The team advanced through the corridors like explorers walking inside the body of a sleeping giant. The station's walls weren't smooth. They pulsated with fossilized marks, like metal veins petrified in time. The light from the lanterns danced over curved, uneven surfaces, casting distorted shadows that seemed to move when no one looked directly. The silence was so absolute that every breath echoed like a forbidden whisper. "Captain, these tunnels don't have regular corners or divisions," the engineer said, examining the readings. "It's as if I had grown up like this." Elijah kept his voice steady. "Keep going. The core is less than 300 meters away." Lyra walked close behind, her eyes fixed on the tablet that registered the signal. The pattern, 3 long, 2 short, 1 low echo, was now stronger, almost deafening on the sensors. She stopped suddenly. "He's adjusting to our heart rate." Everyone froze. "Repeat. The pulse is synchronizing with our heartbeat. He is feeling us." A narrower corridor led to a huge circular room. In the center, suspended by cables that resembled metallic roots, was the monolith, a black, perfectly smooth structure with a pulsating golden core in the middle. It was from him that the signal came. There was no visible console, panel, or language. Just that presence. Observer. Lyra slowly approached, ignoring the chill that ran down her spine. This wasn't done by humans, but he knows humans. He is reproducing our cry for help perfectly, as though had learned over time. Suddenly the lights of the suits flashed in sync. The ground shook gently, and the AI Orion, through the communicators, warned, "Detection of energetic activity. The station is reconfiguring itself." On the Odyssey's bridge, sensors fired in all directions. "Captain, the structure activated internal gravitational fields. Something is scanning you." Inside the chamber, the golden core began to slowly rotate. The final bass echo of the signal has warped. It no longer sounds like a simple transmission, and has become a voice, not words, but clear meanings, invading everyone's mind at the same time. Visions cascaded over them, the arrival of the Horizon Dawn fleet, the moment the colonists tried to respond to the signal, the station opening like a flower to welcome them, and then silence, as if they had disappeared inside her. Lyra staggered back, breathing hard. It's not a lighthouse. It is a mirror. It reflects what it attracts. He learned from the First Fleet, and now studies us. Elias felt the pressure increase. It was like facing a predator that never had to hunt, because the prey came alone, now. But by the time they turned, the runners behind them had changed. The path by which they had entered no longer existed. The walls had closed. Silently, Orion communicated from the ship. "Captain, the station is keeping them. The Central Core arrested them." And at that moment, Elijah understood. They were not exploring the station. The station was exploring them. The walls of the station began to vibrate at an almost imperceptible frequency, but it was felt in the bones. The temperature dropped suddenly, as if all the heat was being drained to some invisible point. The explorer's helmet squeaked with electromagnetic interference. With each step, the corridor changed shape, closing passages, opening new routes, and leading them like pieces in a living labyrinth. "Orion, listen." Elijah tried to keep his voice steady. "Unstable connection. Distorted signal. Zuzz. Be careful." Communication was cut off completely. Lyra looked around, her eyes wide. "She's guiding us." "No, he's hunting us," Elias replied coldly. The suit's sensors began to detect movement. Not mechanical, not organic, something different. It was as if the structure itself had a moving focus, accompanying them along the walls. The lights went out behind them in succession, like a living darkness advancing slowly. The engineer activated a reconnaissance drone and launched it down the corridor ahead. The small machine flew for a few meters before abruptly disappearing, as if it had passed through an invisible curtain. The signal disappeared. No explosion, no noise, only absence. "Retreat," ordered Elias. But as they turned around, the corridor they had come through had been transformed. Now it was a downward spiral leading to the core. They were being pushed inside. In the center of the station, the monolith began to emit a new sound. Low, rhythmic, predatory. The gravitational pulse began to follow the team's steps, speeding up when they ran and slowing down when they stopped, like a heart mimicking fear. Lyra pressed his helmet, trying to contain the flood of mental images. The station was showing things that were not meant to be seen. Fragments of the first human fleet, bodies suspended in translucent chambers, and memories being extracted from brains still alive, as if people had been archived. "Captain, they were not destroyed," he whispered. "They were studied." One of the security guards, seized by panic, ran towards a side corridor. As soon as he crossed the threshold, the ground disappeared beneath his feet, and he was sucked into the darkness without uttering a sound. Only the dry echo of the suit fading into the void. "No one separates," cried Elijah, but the station responded. A metallic bang ran through the entire structure, and the walls began to move. not like machines but like ribs closing over a heart. They ran. Runners twisted ahead, forcing them to change direction. The local gravity oscillated, sometimes pulling them to the ground, sometimes throwing them against the ceiling. It was like running inside the stomach of a hungry creature. On the Odyssey, Orion struggled to re-establish contact. "Captain, the station is behaving like an intelligent predator. It's testing its limits." Suddenly, the team entered a vast chamber where the floor was a liquid mirror. When they stepped, the reflection did not show their bodies, but unknown human figures, with empty eyes and half-open mouths, like imperfect copies. Lyra screamed. Elias pulled the team back, panting. "This is not a structure. It is a conscience, and she's studying us like insects." The pulse became stronger. Something in the core had decided to act. The station's pulse became a silent roar, an invisible force that pressed on the team's lungs. Runners closed behind them like the ribs of a living beast, and the air seemed to gain weight. With each step, the sense of being watched grew, not by physical eyes, but by a colossal consciousness that understood their fears with surgical precision. Elias pressed the communicator to his helmet. "Odyssey, answer." Static, no return. Suddenly the ground shook, and a gravitational wave traveled through the structure. Pieces of metal began to float like dust in an airless room. The station was reconfiguring its own gravity to prevent the escape. Lyra clung to a petrified organic tube as the engineer was hurled against the wall. "It's trapping us like rats in a maze." Elias grunted, activating the suit's thrusters to maintain stability. Lyra pointed to an opening in the ceiling that had formed after the wave. "That passage wasn't here before." "She's guiding us again," the engineer warned. Elias looked at the dark tunnel, then at the team. "Or it's a trap. Or it is the only way out." They went up. The tunnel was narrow and irregular and vibrated as if it were alive. The sound of the nucleus grew farther and farther away, until suddenly a cold light appeared at the end. It was a smaller, perfectly circular chamber with a single portal in the center, and a human drone floating before him. Lyra slowly approached. "That's of Horizon Dawn." The drone was covered in dust but active. His viewfinder projected an image, an old recording. Human faces, frightened, sending the same distress signal. The last man in the image looked directly at the camera and said, "If you're seeing this, it's already too late." She hears everything. Before they could react, the portal behind the drone opened on its own, revealing a direct passage to the outside of the station. Starlight penetrated like a blade. "Era. Output. Let's go," Elias ordered. The team ran, but as soon as they crossed the portal, the station reacted violently. The whole structure began to vibrate. Corridors closed like jaws, and the core emitted a pulse so strong that it launched the shuttle away from the station, spinning out of control. On the bridge of the Odyssey, alarms sounded. "Captain, we have detected you. Tractioners activated." A magnetic beam grabbed the shuttle, pulling it back with force. Outside, the station unfolded hidden panels that began to emit gravitational pulses in sequence. It was as if he was trying to pull the Odyssey in. Orion intervened. "If we don't break up now, we will be swallowed up." "Prepare for emergency jumping," cried Elias. "Anywhere but here." The Odyssey fired all the thrusters. The ship shook as it battled the station's invisible force. Panels began to give way, alarms rang out, but little by little they began to break through the attraction. From inside the station, the core emitted one last pulse, not an attack, but an invitation. The original distress signal rang again, clean and perfect, as if nothing had happened. The Odyssey escaped in the warp drive seconds before it was captured. In the darkness left behind, the station slowly turned, waiting for the next one who would answer the call. The Odyssey emerged from the warp drive as an injured body. Its external lights flickered. The fuselage was scarred by gravitational stresses, and the system still squeaked in alert. For a few seconds, no one spoke. The silence of the crew was the reflection of something that words could not express. They had been inside something alive, and it had let them go. By choice. On the bridge, Elias removed his helmet, his face covered in cold sweat. His eyes weren't just tired. There was the mark of someone who had looked at something that shouldn't exist. Lyra was sitting on the floor, still shivering, her fingers pressing against her temples. Fragmented images of the monolith still throbbed in her mind. Preserved bodies, copied minds, and the sound of the echo adjusting to the human rhythm like an invisible hand squeezing a heart. "Situation?" asked Elias, his voice hoarse. "System stabilizing," replied the navigator. "But, Captain, the signal is still active." Elias froze. "What do you mean? We're already light years away." "But, listen." She activated the speakers, and then again. 3 long pulses, 2 short ones. A deep echo. Perfect. As if the station were still inside them. Orion confirmed with ruthless accuracy. "The transmission is being replicated by Odyssey's internal systems. It was entered during contact. Origin, Communications Center." Lyra looked at Elias with wide eyes. "She didn't let us go. She marked us." Immediately, engineers isolated the core. Nothing helped. The signal continued to echo in silence, subtle, impossible to erase. There was no virus, and there was no technical failure. It was as if the ship itself had learned to repeat the pattern, just as the station had done with the Horizon Dawn fleet. Meanwhile, reports began to pour in through the Alliance's communication channels. Several exploration fleets also detected the signal, in different quadrants, at about the same time. It was multiplying, like an invisible seed planted within the human network. The code that was once a cry for help was now a replicant invitation. In the command room, Lyra muttered, "She's spreading the hook." Elijah replied in a low voice, "And we were the perfect bait." The imaginary camera zooms out from the Odyssey, showing the lone ship crossing the dark void. The sound of the signal echoes softly, accompanying the image. Far away, in the Venar system, the station fully awakens. Panels open, structures rearrange, and thousands of tiny pulses spread out into deep space, like eggs cast into the cosmic stream. 3 long pulses, 2 short ones, a deep echo, repeating, patiently, forever. Some signs were not made to be answered. But humanity always responds. If you like epic sci-fi stories, mysterious signs, and cosmic horrors worthy of Star Wars, Alien, and Dune, subscribe to the channel and activate the bell. Each new story is a unique journey into the unknown.